One man, first round PPR Fantasy Football 2026 mock draft, from Jahmyr Gibbs to CMC. It was named in 8 BCE for the Roman Emperor Augustus Caesar. Fun fact about our boy Gus: he was a fantasy football fanatic. Granted, Gus wasn't without his faults. He tended to draft quarterbacks like Throwerus Harderus earlier than he should.
Fruit flies taking over your kitchen? This discreet plug-in trap uses light to attract flying insects, then captures them on a replaceable adhesive cartridge, without noisy zapping or messy sprays. Want to get the best verified deal and see full details? Visit grabdeal.us/1 right now.
He tended to gravitate toward hometown players like wide receiver Throwerus Harderus, and he was a strict adherent to the 0 RB draft strategy, so he never rostered Derrick Henry. Advertisement still, just as it is for many fantasy managers, this is the best time of year. Whether you were crowned the emperor of your league in 2025, lost the title game to Marcus Agrippa, or finished Tutwelve and were banished to Panditeria, everyone starts with a fresh stone tablet this year. However, while draft season is a time of great excitement, it can also be a time of great peril. As Gus used to say, you can't win your league on draft day, but you can lose it. One mistake can be overcome. But botch too many picks, and your team will get rolled all season long like Tiberius Sempronius Longus was by Hannibal at the Battle of Trebia. There's nothing that strikes terror into the hearts of fantasy managers more than squandering their first pick on draft day. Drafters who selected Malik Neighbors 8th overall last year were throwing things and hurling obscenities a month into the season, even if his injury was unforeseeable. As for Saquon Barkley finishing 15th in PPR points at his position after having an ADP of 3rd overall, that they should have seen coming. For what it's worth, the first round of fantasy drafts is one of the easiest to predict. The names may be jumbled, but the first 12 picks are usually the same cast of characters. Were it up to this analyst, this is how that first round would play out in 2026, with one glaring curveball, just like the famous Roman pitcher Sidarmus Slidrus. 1.01, Jahmyr Gibbs, RB, DET. It's a close race between Gibbs and Atlanta's Bijan Robinson for the title of no. But Gibbs has averaged at least 5 yards per carry in all 3 of his professional seasons. Each of the past 2 years, Gibbs has topped 300 touches and caught over 50 passes. And Gibbs has averaged over 16 total touchdowns a season, including a league-leading 20 in 2024. With David Montgomery now the lead back in Houston, Gibbs will see a career high in touches, top 2,000 total yards, and lead all backs in PPR points. Advertisement 1.02, Bijan Robinson, RB, ATL. There will be more than a few drafts this month where Robinson is the no. Last year, the 24-year-old piled up an NFL-high 2,298 total yards and scored 11 times on the way to finishing second among all running backs in fantasy points behind Christian McCaffrey. But it took Robinson 366 touches to get all those yards, his second consecutive year with 350+. Backs who hit 2,000 yards in a season tend to regress significantly. All things considered, Robinson moves behind Gibbs come draft day. 1.03, Ja'Marr Chase, WR, CIN Chase's 2025 season was a testament to just how dominant a wide receiver he is. Despite playing without Joe Burrow for most of the year, Chase still led the league in targets for the second season in a row, catching 125 passes for 1,412 yards and 8 scores on the way to a 4th-place finish in PPR points at his position. His ceiling came the season before in the form of the receiving Triple Crown: 127 catches, 1,708 yards, 17 touchdown grabs, and the most fantasy points among wideouts by a margin of more than 80 PPR points. 1.04, Puka Nacua, WR, LAR. The more time that passes, the harder it becomes to believe that Nacua was a 5th-round pick back in 2023. 3 years and 44 regular season games into his NFL career, Nacua is averaging 95.3 receiving yards per game. Justin Jefferson is the only WR in NFL history to average more through his first 44 games. Last year, As part of his league-leading 129 catches, 1,715 receiving yards, and 10 scores, Nacua averaged a staggering 107.2 yards per contest. Oh, and he led all wide receivers in PPR points in 2025, if you're into that sort of thing. Missed time in 2 of 3 seasons, including 6 games in 2024, is a concern, but if Nacua is on the field, he's going to break stuff. Advertisement 1.05. Jackson Smith-Njigba, WR. See the first 5 picks in the overwhelming majority of fantasy drafts this year will be Gibbs, Robinson, Nacua, Chase, and Smith-Njigba. The only question is in what order. Last year, JSN was 4th in the league in targets, 163, 3rd in catches, 119, 1st in receiving yards, 1,793, and 5th among WRs in TDs, 10. Only Nacua had more PPR points at the position. Chase and Nacua may have slightly loftier fantasy ceilings, but Smith-Njigba has the highest floor of the lot. Brown, WR, DET over the past 4 seasons, St. Brown has essentially become a pass-catching robot, a heartless machine that terminates the seasons of fantasy opponents. He was the only wideout in the NFC to surpass 170 targets, catching 117 passes for more than 1,400 receiving yards and 11 touchdowns. He finished 3rd at his position in PPR points. There are admittedly a lot of mouths to feed in the Lions' passing game in the likes of St. Brown, Gibbs, Jameson Williams, and Sam Laporta. 1.07. Jonathan Taylor, RB. This is a part of round 1 that I would rather avoid, as it marks the first of a double tap of picks that have considerable risk. It's not that Taylor wasn't productive in 2025. As he was 3rd in the NFL in rushing, led the league with 18 touchdowns on the ground, and finished 4th among running backs in PPR points. But Taylor also led the NFL with 323 carries. The last time that Taylor surpassed 350 touches in a season, the 27-year-old missed 6 games the following campaign. Taylor also tailed off badly down the stretch last year after Daniel Jones got hurt, and there are legit questions about the Colts' offense in 2026. 1.08. Justin Jefferson, WR. Min. Speaking of players fantasy managers regretted drafting last year. Jefferson managed to post a 6th straight 1,000-yard season, but his numbers were among the worst of his career lows in receiving yards, yards per catch and touchdowns, and a paltry 61.6 receiving yards per game on the way to a WR20 fantasy finish. But that drop-off had a lot more to do with JJ, Wormburner, McCarthy than Jefferson. Kyler Murray isn't Joe Montana, but he's not McCarthy either, and assuming he wins the starting job under center in Minnesota, Jefferson should go right back to averaging 90-plus receiving yards per game and challenging for the top spot among wideouts. 1.09. James Cook, RB. BUF Cook was the NFL's rushing leader in 2025, pacing the league with 1,621 yards, marking the 3rd straight season in which Cook eclipsed 1,000 rushing yards. And, after leading the league with 16 rushing touchdowns in 2024, Cook backed it up with a dozen more scores on the ground last year. The Bills may have a new head coach in Joe Brady, but it will be the same old offense that resulted in 342 touches for Cook in 2025. Drafting Cook and, say, Cincinnati's Chase Brown, whose ADP would make him available on the turn here, would not be a bad start to a draft for managers who think Gus' 0-RB plan is hogwash. Advertisement 1.1. CD Lamb, WR, doll that players like Lamb and even Jefferson, whose ADP is 11 this year, are available late in round 1 in 2026 makes the back end of the round the place to be. Yes, Lamb has missed multiple games in back-to-back seasons. Yes, Lamb's 75 receptions last year were his lowest number since his rookie season. And with George Pickens in Dallas, getting another 135-catch, 1,749-yard, 12-score season might be asking a little much. But a healthy Lamb will catch 100 passes, hit 1,200 yards, and flirt with top 5 WR fantasy numbers, at least. He remains a rock-solid WR1 and a foundational fantasy asset. 1.11. Ashton Jeanty, RB. LV. Here's another pick I don't especially like, but the likes of Amarian Hampton and Devon Achane carry enough question marks that I can't take either ahead of Jeanty. Jeanty's rookie season was a disappointment, but his woeful 1.6 yards per carry before contact says more about the Raiders' abysmal offensive line than Jeanty as a running back. And Jeanty should be a focal point of the Raiders' offense after over 320 touches and 55 catches last year. The elite upside is there, but so is more than a little risk. 1.12. Christian McCaffrey, RB, SF. Full disclosure, McCaffrey is included here only as a warning. The 30-year-old was fantasy football's highest-scoring back last year, but the warning signs are everywhere that McCaffrey won't sniff those heights again. There's the career-high 413 touches in 2025, which puts McCaffrey squarely in the crosshairs of the curse of 370, a curse that already sank its fangs into him once. There's the aforementioned history of players who top 2,000 total yards in a season, and both times McCaffrey has achieved the feat in the past, the wheels came completely off the following season. CMC is the biggest bust in fantasy football in 2026, and I wouldn't draft him in round 1.